In this video, I'm going to cover the setting up of a Kulp board for the first time, from unpacking to actual final use. I will cover testing, connecting, FPP setup, FM transmitter, and Xlights config. I have never touched a Kulp board before, so you will be seeing what I am seeing and any problems I face immediately. In the package, I received the Wi-Fi dongle. I also received the board itself. When I ordered, I added the BeagleBone, the FM transmitter, SD card, and the OLED display. If we look at the board from the front, you can see the OLED and the FM transmitter has been pre-fitted. And at the back, we can see the BeagleBone. When you order the SD card with the board, FPP comes pre-installed. You can see here the SD card needs to be pushed into place. The first thing I need to do is power the board. I will be using 5 volts, so I need to move this jumper from the 12 volt position to the 5 volt position. I am now ready to test the board actually powers on. You can see here I have my 5 volt PSU supplying 5 volts to the board. I must power the right hand side of the board because this is the side that provides the power to the BeagleBone. The cables I am using here are just for testing. I will be using higher gauge when I set up the device properly. But for this small test, 18 AWG is absolutely fine. I have not powered this board yet, so you will witness any problems with me. So let's go ahead and power the PSU. The good news is you can clearly see the port LEDs are lit. Only the 8 ports are lit because I have only supplied power to the right hand side of the board. Also, we can see we have activity on the BeagleBone. The OLED is now showing that the BeagleBone is booting. So far so good. You can see it says no network, which is what we would expect with no Ethernet connection or Wi-Fi configured. Now you can see FPP is loaded, but FPPD is not running. I will pause the video until it is booted. Now you can see that the system is just waiting. This is expected. We have a blank setup with no sequences to run. My next step is to now test every port on the board. I will connect a set of pixels to each port and press the test button to initiate the test. One nice thing is the board does come with a full set of connectors, making it easy to connect to each port. However, if you look, the screws are quite small, so you will need a small screwdriver to tighten them. I have now connected one string of pixels to port 16 here. So let's click the test button. You can see the OLED shows testing and we have lights. My next step is to repeat this for every other port, so I am happy that this board is working correctly. I did come across my first issue when I tested the next port. When I powered up the BeagleBone, did not light up. It turned out that the voltage jumper was not tight enough, so I just pushed it into place and all was okay. Now it's time to test the left side of the board. I have added an extra PSU. I could have used the same PSU, but I had several PSUs on my desk, so I just connected another. Now you can clearly see that all the port LEDs are now illuminated. As per the instructions, I have now removed the BeagleBone so that I can perform the initial setup. All I have done is connect a standard mini USB cable. I have also plugged in the Wi-Fi dongle. I'm going to switch to the computer now so we can try and connect and configure. On the left hand side, I have the official manual that is available from the Kulp site. Now I can skip a lot of this setup because I ordered my board with the BeagleBone and SD card included. FPP is already installed on the card. So I am going to jump straight to the USB tethering section. You can see here it states the best way is to remove it from the board, which I have done. And I have opened up a browser on the right and I'm going to try and connect using the supplied IP address. Now I'm going to be using this completely wirelessly and will be sending my sequences and settings over Wi-Fi to the BeagleBone, and the BeagleBone will run the show in standalone mode. Now before I even received the board, I set up a Kulp board in Xlights and I decided on an IP address of 192.168.1.99. Just make sure you choose an IP address in your network range and not used by any other device on your network. The next step I want to do is set up the Wi-Fi. You can see in the manual that it recommends a 2.4 GHz network. This is because the range is better and the signal passes through objects better. So let's go to the network settings in FPP. I am setting up a wireless LAN and will be using a static IP address. So let's select WLAN. I now change to static and I type the IP address for the BeagleBone of 192.168.1.99. I am happy with the default netmask. For the default gateway, a lot of you will be using .1. It is the address of your router, but mine is .254. Now I must type my Wi-Fi SID and password so that the BeagleBone can connect. Now let's see what happens. So we have a warning that we forgot to enter the DNS address. So let's fix that now by entering 8.8.8.8. This is actually the Google DNS service. Okay, that's fixed the problem, so let's reboot. We can still connect via USB, but let's just look and check that the network settings did save. Let's open up another tab so we can test the Wi-Fi connection. We type that Wi-Fi IP address 192.168.1.99. Perfect. So Wi-Fi is done. After the Wi-Fi was configured, I reconnected the BeagleBone to the board, and let's see if it all boots. Now we can clearly see the difference. The device is reporting that it's connected to Wi-Fi. So now I can quickly go to my computer, type the IP address, and we can see we are connected wirelessly. So let's go to the setup within Xlights again. Now I covered earlier that I'd already pre-configured a Kulp board, so let me just go through those settings to confirm. So I just gave it a name, this is your choice, and you can give a description. Enable auto layout models, auto configuration and auto size. I've set it as active so that it will be ready to be used. I've chosen the vendor as Xlights and the model, in my case the K16, but you could choose the model if you have a different model. The IP address, if we recall, I set that to 99. For now I've chosen the protocol as E131. I left this default at 100 and managed, and I left everything else as is. I already pre-configured where I wanted my props. So you can see I've got various different items already mounted. And once you have done all that, you must click the upload input and upload output. This will then send your configuration to FPP on the BeagleBone, and I can confirm that if I come here and go to first channel inputs. You can see I've got that Kulp 16 that I set up, and then if I go to outputs and choose BBB strings, you can see I've got all of my props set up as well. And hopefully now all should work. Let's now do the final Xlights test. You can see I have just one string connected that is representing my garage outline. So let's go to Xlights. First, we will just do a test. I will enable all the ports. Now let's choose an effect. You can now see that the lights are working, so Xlights is sending the information. Now it's time to test a sequence. If I click play and make sure I enable output to lights. Now if I show the house preview, you can see that the garage outline and in turn the pixels are showing what I would expect. The next step I'm going to show is how you can set up the FM transmitter. You can see here that I connected a 75 centimeter piece of wire to the aerial point of the FM board. Now let's set it up at the computer. Now it's time to configure the FM transmitter. So we must go into our plugin manager, and what you are looking for is the FM transmitter plugin. And if we scroll down, okay, look here, I scrolled down there, I forgot. I've already installed this plugin. For you, it will be under the available plugins. Make sure you choose this one that is by Daniel Kulp. You do find another FM transmitter one here under incompatible plugins, but I've used this one and I can assure you it works fine. All you need to do is, if you imagine this was that plugin, it's just a case of installing the plugin. Once it's finished installing, you can then come to this option and you can find that plugin. We click on that and it's a case now of doing the settings. I made no changes here, no changes here. I left this as default, but you can change this if you want. This just decides whether it activates the plugin. Then you specify the frequency that you want to use. So you'll want to be choosing a frequency that is not used in your area. I left this all as normal, with the exception of changing this from USA to Europe. And then you can specify the station name. This is what will show up in the car if you have an RDS receiver. And then here you can specify what will be displayed in the car when the song is playing. So it will pull this information from the MP3 metadata of the artist and the title. Once you're happy, just restart PPD, and that is all I did. I literally then went down into the car, switched on the car. I saw in the RDS receiver a station called Merry Christmas and connected to it, and it was crystal clear. Obviously, if you don't have an RDS receiver, you would just type in the appropriate frequency that you set. One thing I must state, obviously, before you go down, you're not going to be getting audio unless you've actually uploaded some information. So if you look here, if I go into my file manager, you can actually see I've already uploaded a couple of sequences along with their MP3 tracks. And if I go to the scheduler, you can see I've just got a playlist that has those 2 tracks that plays continuously. So what I needed to do was go to my status page, and I changed this player to standalone. As soon as it started, the sequence started playing and the audio as well, and that got transmitted over the FM transmitter.